Okay, I wanted to talk about how to square up your radial arm saw super square to your fence. Now this technique was borrowed from a technique that people use for squaring up sleds for table saws. And then just in general what they do is they'll cut a piece of wood 4 times, or typically a piece of plywood or flat stock, on the fence. Well, 5 times actually. They'll cut it, then line that one on the fence, cut it, and then on the 5th cut they'll cut off a sliver, and they'll take a micrometer and they'll actually measure the distance. Now they've accumulated errors 4 times, so the error is 4 times. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what this might mean for a radial arm saw. I'll make it a little easier on you. And maybe this is a little too mathy or whatever. But anyway, just if I take a look at my radial arm saw, I've kind of draw it out. I've got the column, and this fence right now is 14 inches. Now I could probably do better. In fact, I think I did when I did this. I actually moved my fence back so it was closer. But anyway, this is 14 inches, and the full draw is 26 inches. So the center of the blade is at 26 inches. But if I know I'm going to accumulate 4 times as much air. So if I just say, well, I'm going to accumulate 28. If this arm is 28 long, then this will be 4 times longer than the piece of wood. So if I use just a piece of 7 by 7, it's only going to be 1/4, and because I multiply it times 4, it works out perfectly. So what you could do is you could actually just take a piece, and I don't have one cut out, right, approximately 7 by 7, accumulate that air, and then whenever you measure the delta between this side and this side is the amount of, this side and this side, you'll get like a thinner sliver here and a wider one here. Whatever that delta is, that's how much you're off. Now what you could do is because I'm only 26 out, but I need to go 28 out. That's not bad because I typically want to measure maybe not right on the center. So what I'll do is I'll just take a feeler gauge, and depending on which way I want to go, if I need to go right or left, depending on where it's not square, I could just pick out the right feeler, and then just, this board would be clamped down. And if I needed to move right, I would just actually loosen the column and move it over that way. And if the other way, what happens is I would actually loosen my clamp and move the board over the proper amount with the feeler gauge, and then clamp it back down, take the feeler out and scooch it over. I don't want to, I'm a bit lazy, but anyway, part of the reason people show you how to do this on sleds for table saws, so it should be similar to that. But what's kind of nice about that is then you balance the 4 times by an arm that's 4 times as long, so it's just a 1-to-1 relationship on that particular air. In reality, what happens is you probably end up fussing with it just a little bit. So I'm not going to go through. So each radial arm saws probably have a different procedure for loosening the arm. Mine has like 3 set screws in the back, and you dial it in. And then once you do that, you tighten it back up, you recut, and do it until it. And actually, I got it incredibly tight, like kind of lucky tight. But it was probably my 4th or 5th try. I'm like, well, that's pretty locked in. One of the things to do is, unfortunately, I have a dado set on here, but I have the regular blade, and what I do have, this saw actually came with a laser cut. This bit gimmicky on there because the laser wasn't lined up perfectly with what the blade was, so it doesn't make you any more accurate. You always had to eyeball the offset, which was what was there. You're much better off just having a 0 clearance fence, and you'll know exactly where your cut is because it's exactly where your fence ends. But what's nice about this is when I have this nut on there, so what happens is when it spins, it shoots a laser light. And so what I did is once I got it all squared away, I took just a knife and I scored that laser line exactly right there. So now if this column ever gets off, it'll shoot this laser out a really long way, and so I can get this dialed in perfectly square again if it ever comes out of square. Another way you can just kind of tell is if unfortunately, because the saw can have a little play on it because it's such a, again, I mentioned this in another video, that the center of the saw where the blade cuts is offset, so there's actually a torque happening whenever you're doing a cut. So at some points, if it could rise up. So what happens is this line will move a little bit, but you'll know you're off because your sacrificial cover of your bench will look rough, and maybe time for you to cut another top on it. But anyway, with that, you should be able to get it like super square, you know, like so. It takes a little bit of work, but you know, it can be an accurate beast. Hope that helps someone.